Hello, everybody. Welcome to another one of our Anything App meetings. Um, Today, we'll be talking about three topics and then open the floor up to anything else. The first one, as you see here, is what's involved in starting a new app group. And Marty, myself, and John will be, in fact, having inputs for that. The second topic is this tuning into the correct target. Um, uh, what's going on when you don't, and what really might you do to improve this tuning in, improve your hit rate. And then topic three is this issue which is always around in the ARV world, which is during the analysis judging phase of an ARV prediction, self versus independent judging. So let's start with what's involved in starting a new app group. We have many app groups now. This is the list. The key to these groups and any of the groups is that it needs a general group manager. Sometimes we call it general manager, group manager. The person who is the organizing force behind it. The person does the tasking and keeps records. To form a group, the general manager, and often with the people, so there's this formation stage, and in fact we're in that stage right now with the lottery. There's usually discussions about what the group is going to do and a definition of a specific protocol. Ultimately that gets written down, but as we've seen, it's not rigid. This protocol, in fact, the way it's worked turns out to be the starting protocol, and then the group manager, may very well change it from time to time. But you need to have this initial protocol well defined. And then there needs to be some sort of independent discussion group. Most of the groups are set up in terms of a Google group. It's very easy to set up a Google group so that all of the emails will go through that Google group. You can have pictures, etc. However, some of the groups are actually simply done with an email list. But the point is that work, those discussions, once the group is formed, and even in the final phases of the group formation, are not done on the app discussion group. The first thing is to find out the people that are interested, and then you take it offline. So that is one part of it. Also, when you do the tasking, when you do the feedback, all of that is done in some sort of separate group fashion, led by the group manager. And this then is also critical. You need to be able to maintain statistics. You're really not an app group if you're not going to maintain statistics while you're a group. That's the key thing that app does, is we're always interested in statistics, both at the group level and at the individual personal level. The people are interested in how they're doing. Also, this is a way we can identify those that excel. Now, I happen to believe everybody can excel if they work on it, focused on it. But the reality is people excel at different times in different ways. We would like to be able to identify those people and work with them to have them become professionals. And we have another organization that APPI, that does that. Right now, on our discussion groups, there's been talk about the lottery and talk about the weather. There's been a lot of talk about the lottery and minimal talk about the weather. So the weather group may just be some interesting discussions, and it may very well end there. It looks like the lottery group has gone actually quite far and will become an app group. And I'd like John now to talk about that. He's sort of been following that and aiding the people involved. Do you want the presentation screen, John, or are you just going to talk?
You talking to me or John Allen?
No, John in terms of the lottery.
Yeah. Well, John Allen's been involved too.
Okay, but I think you're going to summarize it for me, right?
Yeah, if you give me the screen, I can show
Perfect.
you
Perfect.
here.
You can just go with J. Allen if it's less confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking
or I've been starting to call you Johnny. Does that work too?
That's kind of distracting for me. Just J.
Okay.
Allen. J. Allen's good.
Okay. Okay, you should have the screen, John.
Yeah.
Great.
So, can you see this screen here? This is the TKR board.
Yep.
It's not visible to the public yet, but what happened was James Cockerham and John Allen and myself were talking about how to organize the lottery group, and we recognized there are 20 people that are interested, but we thought that James had volunteered to sort of head up the organization of it, which is good. And John also is skilled, as he'll talk about, with managing the SSE website and so forth. So one thought was, well, can we get a real forum, more than Google Groups, something that has more capability? So I wrote to Palyn, P-A-L-Y-N-E, P.J. Gamier, who's the owner of 10,000 Rows, which has thousands and thousands of members, and they do a lot of viewing in a dojo for people who aren't familiar with 10,000 Rows, TKR. So they have a real forum, they have discussions, and PJ said, sure, I'll set up a board. We're designed for people to do remote viewing. You can see here that Daz has got a controlled remote viewing board, which is maybe a year or so old, where CRB is done. And this will be our board here, which can have sub-boards or child boards. And it hasn't been given any content yet. It was just put up yesterday. And we're going to have a go-to meeting this afternoon to talk about that some more. James isn't here, but he's been brainstorming different ways to go about it. And if anybody has input here on it and there's time, it would be welcome to get that, I think, too. So that's sort of the basics of where we're at. And John Allen, do you want to say anything?
I have, well, there's two things. So I tried to get a handle over at the TKR site like a couple of months ago, and they never, I even sent a follow-up email and still couldn't get in. So we need to kind of resolve that for, not just for me, but whoever else wants in. And as far as starting the group, I don't really have a comment. I do have sort of concern as far as the protocols that are going to be used, because from the discussion on people are going to be using a lot of different protocols, and I'm not sure how you want to do the statistics on that. If I was going to do lottery numbers, I probably would do dowsing myself, or a form of dowsing, but then I know John Cockerham is going to try applied kinesiology, muscle test kind of a thing, and yeah, I don't know. That's something that needs to be worked out. My interest in the Lotto group is more towards the science and the statistics of it than actually. I mean, it never hurts to win the lottery, but it's something we got to work out.
Let me ask both of you, has somebody taken the role of group manager?
Yeah, James said he will organize the overall thing as we get into it, and he has started doing that. I've been trying to give him my advice based on, knowledge of what APP does and also a lot of experience with lottery for the last 13 years. And but we need input at some point from people too about what they specifically want. The boards have been set up very roughly, and they can be changed. PJ just set them up fairly roughly, but we can add any other boards. And just a bit more, we can have private boards too, so that only members of a particular lottery group, say in Kentucky, can see that particular board on 10,000 rows. So one thought is to do most of it or all of it out of 10,000 rows, but I think James Cockrum is also exploring whether Instagram figures in. I don't use Instagram, so I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but he's been exploring that. So that's sort of where we're at in terms of organization.
Okay, well, it sounds to me like you and James are temporary group managers, and you're clear about, you're helping right now a lot, John, obviously, but it's your intention once things get set up to have James be the group manager. And it sounds to me like the discussions can continue if you can get this TKR lottery board going. That would be the place to have all the discussions and just make sure everybody can figure out how to get on. That's obviously a problem now, but obviously you can get over that because there are thousands of people who have.
Yeah, there's like how many members? There are 11,700 members,
Right.
and a lot of people are able to get on. But PJ put 3 of us as moderators for now, but you're right. After it gets set up, I don't want to do any admin. I might stay as a moderator for a while, but if anybody's here at this GoToMeeting that we're having now that's interested in taking part in this, let us know, because there's certainly room for more input.
Right. So send your interest to John or James. Maybe you can put their your email and his email in the chat box, or in fact, even better, if you can put it in a note up here so it'll be part of the webinar, because other people will be looking at this. And right now, you two seem to be the principal contacts, John.
Right.
So maybe you can put that just in a notepad or something, text, so it goes on the webinar. The chat box doesn't go into the webinar notes.
Right. Okay, well, while we're talking, I'll try to do that.
Okay, well, I think this is great. And the idea that we now have a place to do other discussions, Dave has pushed me for a while now to have another place where non-precognition discussions, but, psi-related discussions, which are certainly somewhat related to precognition, could go on. And this TKR board sounds like a perfect place for that. So this is really a tremendous a new capability for app. So thank you for making that happen, John, and thank you, PJ.
Yeah, really, PJ's been so generous. I even offered to, suggest that we go to her donate button. She has a donation button, which I've contributed to in the past, just as an optional thing. And she said, no, I'm fine with money. Take the money into ARV. So, okay, great.
You know what I would like to do, and I don't think she'd object, but we should definitely ask her, is I'd love to just give her a free year of a full membership so she can get into all of those webinars and stuff like that, because this was really
Sure.
Why don't you ask her if she wants that, and I'm sure she'll say yes, and then we'll just do it. But then she'll have access to all of those, okay? So that'll be a little payback.
Good idea, yeah.
Okay.
What's the protocol going to be for the lottery group? I mean, if people are dowsing and doing muscle testing and all those kind of things, how is it going to work? And then, I mean, how many numbers are we trying to predict? Is it just the 3 numbers, or
you're doing the 3-pick? Seems like the focus is on the 3-pick, and there may be ways to go after the same lottery. No matter where you are, we all found that 5 dimes can do lotteries and does payoffs better than the states. I found that out when I was doing this work back with California. So anybody can do it from anywhere if they go into 5 dimes. But imagine if everybody did different approaches, but nevertheless, they'd be predicting the numbers. And then maybe the group manager would see if there's a consensus on the 3 numbers. I mean, I don't know. That's up to the group manager to do, Dave, and I see it as a challenge. But,
Yeah, it's going to be labor intensive unless they really dial it down, you know.
yeah, and that's just where we are. And so that's, that's the point of doing this now is, yes, there's interest. It looks like we have ourselves a group manager, and now they have to work out the details together. And we have a forum. What do you call these boards, John? I'm sorry.
Forms, yeah.
Child boards. Well, we have a section that's ours, and then we also have child boards within them.
Okay, but right now we're going to use one lottery board, and that's where the discussions go on. So that's the status.
But just to be clear, there can be any number of groups can form separately, in particular regionally. Some people may not want to do the online betting on a sports book on 5 dimes. They may want to just go to the shop. So there might be a group in Kentucky. I think James is already talking about that. Yep. James also has sort of bigger plans like the Powerball. I think a lot of people would be interested in that, also teaching methods. But one caution here, I played the lottery, quite a bit, and I've won 6 times now, the pick 3. But that's making about 300 bets. Still, the odds are approximately 1 in 333 if you count all the possibilities. So that's much better than odds, and you can make money. But my point is, we're not necessarily going to have a lot of wins here. So it's more like an experiment. And in particular, my interest is seeing if we can track people getting 2 out of 3 correct, because it seems to happen a lot. I guess there's an 18% chance of that or something. I have to review that stat. Somebody gave it. But we can use all the viewers to get some stats on how you can get 2 out of 3 right if there are people that are really good at that. But as far as variety, people can form their own groups. There's going to be different group managers. It's not just going to be one group doing the lottery for sure.
Okay, John, see if you can get those emails up on there, and then we now have the place for all these discussions to go forward, and that's terrific. I will tell you that what John just said about not getting that many hits and yet overall you can make money was one of the reasons which I stopped doing lottery-like things and horse racing things where you'd go after the winning horse, because you get the misses, which it's good to learn how to deal with those, but I like the 50-50 propositions personally, because then you don't get as many misses even when you're up at the 65% level. You have to handle the misses, but that's my personal preference. It's clear that there are a lot of people that want to do the lottery, and now you have a forum and an approach on how to do that.
And somebody's asking here in the chat box, is TKR ready now for us to join the app board? The board is not open to the public yet. You can see it because PJ made me an administrator, so I can access it myself and show it to you. But it's not ready for comments yet, or it's not open formally. But you can still go over and join TKR and become a member, and that'll make it easier for us to put you into these APP section.
Right, that's a requirement first. One, can you get that notepad up, and maybe you can put the TKR.
Well, here's the link right here to access.
Okay. Right, can you guys see that?
I'll put it into the chat box too.
Okay. Oops, you pasted rather than copied. Okay, I tell you what, I think maybe what we're going to need is I'll come back to you, or maybe you can send a, you know what I'm going to do? When I make this webinar open to everybody, we'll put the information about the lottery in there, John. Okay. Because I want to move, I want to move on.
Sure.
So, yeah, you can put all that in the chat box now, and then I'll put it in an email.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Any other questions about this before we go on to the next topic? Okay, very good. Then I'll take back the presenter. And okay, and again, John, thanks for
Sure,
making all of this happen.
sure.
Now, topic 2, and this is always and I believe forever will be a topic of interest because as time goes on and people do get better and better at this, um, we're never, well, I shouldn't say that. At least for now, no one's 100%. And so part of the process, I think, is always tuning in and getting more correct information about the target. I mean, what else is it that we're doing in remote viewing? In almost all psi work of one sort or another, there's a type of a target. Um, and ultimately, there has to be feedback involved, otherwise you'll never know how well you did. So it's just absolutely clear to me that valuable psi work of any form, and certainly in the precognition area, involves a feedback target and something that's associated with what we call a coordinate. Other people call it a TRN, a transcript reference number, a label of some sort. I know a lot of people out there that use nothing but a date to indicate their transcript. But whatever it is, it's something which is clearly associated ultimately with the feedback target. It's the target that you're going after. Now, it just happened, and it's what motivated this particular section, is that two things happened at the same time with two different people. There was a transcript, one transcript, so this is sort of a classical ARV type of issue. There was one transcript, and as you all know, in ARV, there are two possible targets that come up at judging time, and this was self-judging, and both of them got confidence rankings of 5 on a scale of 5 to 7. And here, in fact, was the comment that was put in. There you go, horizontal trees as in the session, so you got that as a match. A CR5 for photosite 8. However, photosite B is also a very good match to the first image of the session, the dark umbrella, et cetera, et cetera. The point being that in this case, there was a good description of two possible targets. Now, the targets were not, from many respects, not that close, but to each other. You could have found a lot of other things to describe. But in this particular case, the subconscious decided to give matches on both of those. So one of the things you want to talk about, and we want to discuss a little bit, is how to maybe add to your intentions to actually describe something which is unique in the actual feedback target. Okay, there was a second transcript, a second issue, and this one, because of the way the Winning Entanglements program works, the WE program, one person actually does two transcripts going after two separate feedback targets. And in this case, they actually got good matches, very strong matches, confidence rankings of 6 on both. One transcript was a really good match to one feedback. The other well, one potential feedback. The other transcript was a good match to the other potential target. Therefore, you can't choose one over the other. So this is also another way of getting a pass. Now here, you know for sure one is going to be right and the other is going to be wrong here. Um, so um, one of these cases is going to be a really good match. The other is going to be a displacement, as it turns out here. The point being, and all of you who have been around long enough have seen things like this, where you describe the wrong target in some fashion or another. In fact, it's my opinion that when you get a session that isn't a match to either of the two potential targets, when you do remote viewing and you don't happen to hit a target, you may very well be going someplace else. Your subconscious, for whatever reason, is picking up information, but it's picking it up from the wrong place. Okay, so how do we indeed tune in to the correct feedback target? What do we do? How do we entangle at remote viewing time with our feedback session? I believe that this tool that I'm now going to focus you on is one of the important answers. It's part of the important answer when you fully understand it. So let's first talk about this in the context of a beacon, because that's what we're going to be using, this concept of a beacon. So a beacon definition, person or thing that warns, guides, or offers support. So a lighthouse, right? You use a lighthouse, it gives you support, you avoid the rocks, it helps you get close to the place that you're looking for. The lights on a runway, a friend, okay, who offers direction and guidance. All of these are kinds of beacons. Here's the lighthouse example. Here's a beacon which an airplane uses, right? The beacon guides him right to his landing strip. And then this idea of a friend. A beacon is your friend. Now, here's just an example. A beacon is not your target, but it might get you close to the target. Hey, go to the lighthouse here and then look for the yellow house. Go a little east, 100 yards, and you'll find what your target is. The beacon gets you close. Lots of different kinds of beacons. I love this graph and beacon power. There's, the word is well known, but you can use beacons of textures, for example. The idea here is going to be to take a beacon at remote viewing time, decide on your beacon at remote viewing time, use that exact same beacon at the feedback session to be like your lighthouse. But in our world, the beacon could be a smell. The beacon could be a texture. I love the sandpaper idea because it's a little bit different. You take the sandpaper, you touch it as you're getting ready to do your remote viewing session, knowing you're going to touch it, feeling it's going inside yourself. Your whole nervous system is involved in it. You're intending and expecting that you will be doing the same thing at the feedback session. That is your beacon to guide you to the feedback session. I mean, it's just a simple, powerful idea. Personally, I've used this one several times, but I've used it in a slightly different way. Opened it up, took one bite of the chocolate, okay, leaving the other half to be finished at the feedback session, knowing I'm going to do that, using that as my beacon, making it real, lighting up the feedback session, and guess what's nearby? All of the information about the correct target that's associated with the remote viewing session when I started with my beacon. A beautiful way to use a beacon. You can use textures, you can use tastes. Some people don't like chocolate. I could never understand that, but I know there are some people who don't like chocolate. Hey, you could use an apple. Um, use something different. Make it very interesting and meaningful to you. A top. Your pencil. Guess what? You've been using a beacon ever since you started doing remote viewing in ARV. Your beacon is your coordinate, your TRN. That is what has guided you to your target. That's what you put down at first. Skip Atwater sometimes refers to the coordinate as a telephone number. Okay? When you remember someone's telephone number, in a way, it's acting as a beacon. When you dial that number, who do you expect to answer it? Somebody at a very specific location. Okay? That beacon idea is around. It entangles things, two things. The remote viewing session and the feedback session is the perfect example. You have been using it, but the idea now is to pay more attention to it, to do it really consciously so that it lights up your entire feedback session. It lights up the target. It lights up all the things you do during your feedback session where you actually know the truth, where you pay a lot of attention not only now to your beacon, which gets you there, but to your correct target. You use your beacon to light up your target in SciSpace, to light it up for your remote viewing session. This is a great quote. Attention. So now you're paying attention to your target, which you found with your beacon at feedback time. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. You're giving your time, you're giving your attention to the feedback target. Now, as I said, your coordinate has always been a beacon. You can play on that. Another type of beacon is to just copy the coordinate at the top of the transcript, but do it several times, paying attention, not to the number. You're not trying to memorize the number. You're paying attention to the motion. You're paying attention to how your pencil or pen feels on the paper, how it moves. It moves very differently when you make an 8 versus a 1 versus a 4. How does that feel? You're paying attention to that because this is the way you're communicating with your subconscious, and paying attention to it is reinforcing your intention that you're going to be also doing this at feedback time and to look for it. Subconscious, this is the place to look. This is the beacon. I'm expecting and I know I'm going to be doing the same thing at feedback time. So I'm making it easier for you to find me. So another thing which I often suggest is to say it out loud. And again, it's not for memorizing it. It's for the vibration and emphasizing your intention and your expectation, which in fact you will do at feedback time when you have the actual target in front of you. So I think this is just so important to know that this technique will work. You're going to intend and know you will do this during your feedback session. This intention, attention, expectation, all of these are being done both at the remote viewing and the feedback session. So use your beacon consciously. And what this means is you're getting stuff from your subconscious and you're becoming well aware of that. You're well aware at feedback time to those great matches, with the correct target at feedback time. Now, same thing for passes and misses. Here, you might ask yourself, why didn't I tune in as well as I wish, I had? Just, the objective is always to tune into the correct target. None of us are 100% yet. There's stuff to be learned here, and that's where this paying attention to everything that went on is important. Did you rush things more than you should have? Usually you can find something. I also suggest giving as much positive as you can always, and even when you get passes and misses, there's some positive, if nothing else, the fact that you're doing this and you're on this long-term, rather exciting journey. But ask your subconscious for what could I have done to make it even a little bit better? And listen. Beliefs are very important. Tuning in to the correct feedback target. Take the belief system, and just because I'm saying it isn't going to do it. You have to do this. You have to make this real to your both conscious mind, your intellectual mind, your ego mind, and your subconscious mind, that this is the best beacon approach for me right now. I can't tell you exactly what the best one is for you. Maybe what you've been doing and just writing the coordinate down once, you feel really comfortable that that's good enough. But maybe you want to say, you know what, doing one of these other approaches I think is going to be best for me. Let's take a look at it. Let's do it. I'm doing my remote viewing session and my associated feedback session with positive intention, attention, and expectation. I am going to be doing this. I am doing this. Get down to where you believe this so deeply that you take it for granted. The expectation part should be taken for granted as much as you take for granted that the sun's going to come up. You get this stuff deep, deep in you. Okay, questions, comments on that? I really believe this is I almost want to say a secret. That's not a secret, but so important.
I had a comment on your beacon thing.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about now. Go.
I think that for me, smells work really well. Like I have a little thing of sage right on my desk that I take a smell of before I do a session, and then I'll try and when I do feedback, I'll use that same smell and try and associate it with. And then I also use a different color pen. Like I have a different pen because we're doing we have two photo sites. I use a different color pen for each one, and then I use the same pen for the feedback. I mean, it's really basic, but I think your subconscious gets the idea that sort of an intention.
No, that is terrific. And the fact that you've come up with these yourself are so important too, because that's part of making it real. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And of course, all this stuff is working so well for you. I'm going to be showing one of your sessions shortly. So that's great. Thank you, John. Any other comments, questions? Do you get this? Yes. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
This is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I'm totally confused, and I'm very glad you're doing this session because your beacon concept, I mean, I think I get it in theory anyway, but I don't think I'm doing anything like that. I mean, of course, I set an intention before I start, and the intention is the feedback target. But then when I'm working on the two different photos, I'm trying to tune into each one of those as accurately as possible. So what is the superseding thought that I should be better at whichever one is the feedback target? I should just get that one better?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, Nancy, this is so important. So important, what I'm about to tell you now. The beacon is to connect up the remote viewing session with the feedback session. Your comments indicated to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you think this is somehow also connected with the judging session when you see your two pictures. And that is not true. The beacon has nothing to do with the judging session. In fact, you should, it just has nothing to do with it. The entanglement that you're looking for is with the remote viewing session and the feedback session. We're going to talk about judging next, but it's very important to understand that when you wrote down your coordinate, what you were doing when you were doing remote viewing or ARVing is only to entangle your transcript with that coordinate with your feedback session target, which is the correct target. Okay? So did that help get you to understand what the beacon is? The judging is something which is entirely separate, and we're going to talk about that next, but I want to make sure you understand the beacon concept. The beacon concept is to get your transcript to actually match what you see during your feedback session time. Okay,
Yeah, I
is that
guess
helping?
I think I understand. I probably get in my own way because I'm trying to, I guess I'm just trying to also simultaneously get both of those photos
Why?
accurately. So I'm getting in my own way.
Yes, you are. See, that thought, and that's why your belief and thought, and here you are believing that I can somehow get both of those with one transcript. Take a look at that belief and try to change it. When you get one coordinate, you're doing a transcript for one coordinate, correct? You've put that coordinate on your paper, and you're doing a transcript for that one coordinate at some point in time, correct?
Right. Yeah.
When you're doing that transcript for that coordinate, that transcript is to be associated with only one target, the feedback target associated with that coordinate. It's just so interesting that this statement turns out to be really the key to almost everything we're doing. And the beacon is a way of enhancing that. You're tuning into the correct target. Well, the correct target is the feedback target for its coordinate. I mean, intellectually, that makes a lot of sense, right? There's only one target for one coordinate.
Oh, sure. And I understand that. I mean, I did have an issue where that wasn't quite working out.
And I think I
But
can see in your case, because at judging time, you were sort of mixing up the two coordinates with the two targets. And don't do that. The judging is a totally separate thing. Okay.
Hey, Marty.
Did I help?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Perfect. And that's perfect. Go ahead, John. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that helps me differentiate between the targets, I mean, I already have a strong intent that I just want one target at a time, but I sort of do the same thing you do. I write the target number over and over, and I'll say it out loud also. I'll do multiple ideograms with the same target number, and just sometimes I'll just get one piece of data after I write the target number, but and then and then you probe your target. You can actually probe your target number just like you can probe an ideogram. Just little focusing methods to
Right, to make this connection. And all of those are types of beacons, in fact. If you do similar things at the feedback session that you do at the remote viewing session. Okay. Other questions, comments, please. This is so important that, it's worth whatever time, comments, questions that you have. These beacons work. You've been using it all along with the coordinate. Now we're saying, hey, let's do it even more directly. Let's add some entanglement energy between the remote viewing session and the feedback session, which will help you get better matches between your transcript that you do here and the truth that you see at the feedback session. Comments, questions? Really important to ask them, because if you've got them, other people probably do as well.
I wanted to ask, if I could, I see John is here, John Herlosky. There's so many of us Johns now. I got to get a new name.
Yeah.
I don't know if John, if you want to comment on your sort of, I don't know if it's an anti-beacon or a nag or whatever it is that's been helping you so much. I don't know if you may not want to talk about that right now.
Do you have a mic, John? John H.?
I guess he's not, maybe he's not
Well,
listening.
that's what he's going to talk about at AppFest, and it's really more associated with the analysis judging phase. So, in fact, maybe when we get into that, he might want to put a comment in the comment box. I hope he's hearing us. And
okay.
I can't tell. Okay, but we'll get that question answered eventually, John, because that's obviously of interest.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, let's now move on to the analysis judging. And it's really important to understand that this is an entirely different session. It started out historically where it would be done independently. I mean, it makes sense the way we normally look at the world, that if someone does a remote viewing session and their idea is to get a good match to the target which they're going to be seeing at the feedback time. So there's only one target. Get that clear. There's only one target. There's only one target. They'll see it at feedback time. However, in order to make something wagerable, in order to do ARV, you need to have two potential targets so that you can now associate one target with, say, up and another target with, say, down. Or maybe yes versus no, whatever, binary. So it makes good sense to not let the remote viewer see those two choices, because somehow it could interfere with him, I mean, or her. That makes perfect sense. I mean, that would certainly be the going in position. And so many years ago, we're talking many years ago now, probably 70s and 80s, maybe even the early 90s, all ARV was done with independent judging. But then, in fact, the first person I know who ever changed that was, help me, I forgot his name, something K. We can never pronounce his last name.
Greg K.
Right, Greg K. Greg K was the first one I know about who actually did and shared the fact that he was doing independent judging. So we'll give him credit for that. We then started experimenting with it ourselves, and guess what? It works quite well. To this day, a lot of people, including Ed May and Joe McMonagle, will say don't do self-judging. That is the advice they'll give you. Fine. I know, and we've already heard from some people here who know that indeed self-judging works. It's absolutely clear to me that both approaches work. And I think belief systems about the analysis judging, AJing, use are important. I believe if Joe were to actually try to do self-judging, he probably would not do it well because deep in him, he doesn't believe it'll work well. So you need to get to a place, and this might come after some experimentation, that one approach or another, something like, this is the best approach for me, okay? I'm doing my judging with positive intention, attention, and expectation. Remember, this is a totally separate session. It's got nothing to do with anything else. During the judging session, you have a transcript, whether you're an independent judge or self-judging. You've got one transcript you're looking at a time. You look at one transcript, then you look at it compared to two possibilities, and you do your judging one way or another. You know, a lot of us use the TARG system, but there are other systems out there, and some people use other systems. But in ARV, you always have one transcript versus two, independent session, and you take it seriously. It's a very important session. And you do your judging with all the same things you do everything with. So this positive intention, attention, and expectation, you're expecting that when you, and judges get feedback as well, that when you see your feedback, you're expecting to get that you did your judging well. That's all that you're trying to expect, is that you did the judging well. That you didn't miss anything, et cetera, and that you'll possibly learn something from it. Now, this belief system ultimately comes down to what you believe about what I'm calling a communication channel between the conscious and subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, submerged mind is the word we use. Other people might call it a higher self, a deeper self, an inner self. They might say they're communicating with higher consciousness. Lots of different words used for the same thing, but there's some way, and the key thing in my mind is that you're accepting that there's information out there that your normal mind does not have access to, and that there's a part of you, okay, so your subconscious mind, that is connected with something even bigger where all this information is. That's a belief system. Now the question is, how powerful do you think your subconscious mind can be? How much information do you think it has access to? And here, this is from Tony Robbins. You all probably know him. He gives lots of talks on lots of different subjects, none of them, as far as I know, on remote viewing, and yet he's got a very general statement here that's worth pondering. What we can or cannot do what we consider possible or impossible is rarely a function of our true capability. It is more likely a function of our beliefs about who we are. Beliefs about who we are. What we can do, what we can't do. Um, can we do self-judging? Can we do independent judging? Does it matter? We all have beliefs about all kinds of different things, and these are beliefs which we don't usually examine. One of the beautiful parts about the work we're in is it actually forces us to take on those beliefs. And I believe not only should we take them on when we're forced to take them on, I believe we should take them on aggressively by paying attention to what's happening to us through all of these processes that we're involved in. This is why that hackneyed statement that your misses teach you more than your hits, though there's certainly stuff to be learned from both, but it's through your misses when you can look down in yourself and see potentially why you had that miss, and was it something in your belief system that might have been part of that, things which you thought you knew, but maybe that really wasn't knowledge. It was a belief that might have been wrong, a belief that might be able to be modified for your benefit. One of the things which has become clear, and this becomes clear through all the years for me that I did do independent judging, is that this concept called displacement, where a remote viewer will get a good description of the wrong target, happens with independent judging. The idea that you wouldn't show the remote viewer their two choices was because you figured if they saw them both, then obviously he might be prejudiced against them and would somehow describe them. Even if this was done after the remote viewing session, now you're showing it to him, it might somehow have prejudiced him during that connection. Well, you want to know something? Even with an independent judge, we have seen sevens, lots of sixes, where the guy did a great job and we never showed him the wrong target. In fact, sometimes I would tell them that they did that, and I figured that was a mistake just because now they know they did good psychic functioning, and I didn't want to encourage that to the wrong target, so we wouldn't tell them anything, and it continued. What this does is shows and is actually really good evidence for the fact that your subconscious mind essentially has access to all information. It's a matter of focusing on the proper information that you want to focus on, and techniques for doing that. For example, beacons, training yourself to go to the specific target that you want to and nothing else. But displacement is an example of where you went to the wrong target. But nevertheless, you were psychic. The capability is there. It really seems, and you know, I'm at the level where my belief is very, very strong at this level, enough that I'm willing to say I know it, that consciousness and your consciousness is everywhere and every time at the subconscious level. This is your submerged consciousness has access to everything, everywhere, every time. That's pretty powerful stuff. Now, this means that if you can get to a place where self-judging will feel comfortable to you, you can use it. And I frankly have become an advocate for self-judging, but only if you can get to where you feel comfortable about it. So that's my position. I am now an advocate of it, not only because it works so well, but the other works well as well. So, but because so many people find it difficult to find judges. It's just difficult to find judges. If you're a married couple, terrific. If you're in an environment where you can email your transcripts to somebody else, they can in fact judge them in most systems. So you can find independent judges, but then the logistics become a problem. Plus, there are good reasons why self-judging might, in fact, even be better for some people because they'll understand the way their subconscious communicates better than another independent judge. On the other hand, if you work with the same independent judge for long enough, they'll get to know your approach as well. So I am an advocate for it, but I'm not taking anything away from those that want to do independent judging. Here are hit rates for people who do independent judging. Okay, I have two of them here. I mean,
Marty?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back online. Sorry.
Oh, okay, good, John. Let me, because the nag is something that comes up with your judging stage, doesn't it? When does the nag come up? They don't know that, and
It's during the judging stage.
Okay, let's wait until I finish here because I'm almost done,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about the nag in particular. Okay.
Sure.
So I will get back to you as soon as let me just finish this presentation because the nag is just an example of how you use it during your self-judging. Now, if you don't mind, can I identify you as one of these here?
Oh yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, right here is John, self-judging. Okay, John H. And the red line is his cumulative over 34 or so sessions. And he doesn't have too many passes, but there are, in fact, I don't see any passes here. It'd be straight across if it was a pass. And he's up at almost 80% overall. That's the red curve. The green is his last 25, and that is actually at 80%. And the blue is his last 10. That's at 90%. So self-judging works. And here's just another example. And not all self-judges do this well. My point here is to get over what has been put out by very reputable people. Don't do self-judging, and I'm just trying to counter that here by saying self-judging certainly works for some people. It may work for you, but you're going to have to get to where you believe it. All of this is trying to help get you to believe it. Here's an example. This is Jenny. I don't know if Jenny is here. She's been involved in finishing off some work with the book she's doing that's going to be published.
I think she dropped off, Marty.
Okay.
That she got a page.
But here's one of her transcripts. Again, self-judged. I love this one, chunk, chunk, chunk sound. This was a very nice hit. You say, where does the subconscious come from this stuff? It has access, and it has to come up with a way of communicating, and that's what you're trying to improve. And I believe that improvement will go on forever. You're improving your communication channel. But here, chunk, chunk, chunk. You got to love it. Steel gray, battleship gray. This was a very good session. Green, short green, spiky. I don't know what the spiky means, but um, kind of like a golf course. You know, not everything is right on, but when you get something like chunk, chunk, chunk sound, you know, you got to give that a lot of credit. And there was a lot of other stuff here as well. Here's one from John, who's telling you about how he uses a beacon. He uses self-judging. And just look at the shapes he got. It's just remarkable, okay, that you can do this well. And he wasn't 100% on either. And someday, and some people, we've certainly seen sessions from Joe McMonagle where you would say they were like 95% on. And I have a feeling that both John and Jenny are working towards that. And every time they do a feedback session, they're trying to improve. But I just want to show what you can see with self-judging. It works quite well. Now, before I close, I want just to point out, and they just happen to be these two. There are a lot of people who do self-judging without using what look like forms. Notice this typed, she types hers up. I think afterwards for the record, but John used here a specific form that he has that he fills out, and not essential. A lot of people don't use forms, but I just wanted to show you a form that if any of you do want to use, notice I've now added this form I had before, but I've now added the idea of a beacon to the very top. It kind of goes after the CRV format with a coordinate ideogram, but I'm finding more and more people, including myself, tend to look at this as also potentially being a pictogram. And it depends on how it all feels, and it's very personal, but this would be where you would write the coordinate when you start and a pictogram. But you know, you might want to put the coordinates several times up here also. And this is like a reminder of the kind of things that you might get. You might put information under there or not. But if you would find this useful, just email me and I would be happy to send this to you. Hi, Jenny. I see you're back. I showed this one of yours, and I especially love the chunk, chunk, chunk sound. You got to love it when your subconscious gives you information like that.
Well, the Sting. Now, you guys aren't from. You guys haven't been to Indiana, but the steampunk clock at the State Museum also makes a sound very much like that train would.
Mm-hmm. Just amazing that, you know, the way the subconscious gave you that, and of course at just the right time, and keyed in at just the right time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marty.
Yeah.
Let me say something about the form real quick.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need a form, but I use it as sort of another tool because I'll go over each of these sections on the left: textures, colors, smells. I'll get a couple of things each time, and then I'll go top to bottom, and then I'll get like I'll maybe do a drawing, and then I'll go top to bottom again, and I'll keep filling it in from top to bottom, back and forth. Sometimes I'll probe the word, color or texture to get more data, but it allows me to go through the session faster and not miss anything, or not have to think about, okay, what other data. Mm-hmm. And you can actually probe them too. It's just I use it as a tool. It's not necessary, but it works out pretty well. If anybody, like, I guess Marty has one too, but if anybody likes this, I have a feedback form also, and I can post it on the thing if you want.
Yeah, you know what we might do? Maybe you and I ought to put together a little place where people can just rather than sending it to them, make a little place they can go to. Let's talk about that. For now, email myself and or John, and we'll be happy to send this stuff to you. Okay?
Marty, you may want to include more stuff under the aesthetic impact area, because a lot of times you get a feel for the target, but you may not get a visual.
Yeah, well, everybody, they can put it here. Everybody, these are blank. We're talking about giving blanks like this. Okay, and this does say it didn't come out, but this says aesthetic impact down here. And then they can do whatever they want to. But we're saying, how about helping people by giving them raw forms like this, if nothing else, to remind them that the subconscious, can communicate through all these different approaches. So that was the idea here. In fact, we noticed in yours, do you have a form that you start with, or do you retype up yours?
I do a paper form, but like this is just a summary.
Okay.
I usually do this I have a spreadsheet form that I use for CRB, but the thing is it's not compatible with the WE system.
Right.
So what I do is I've just been typing it up on here. It's not the form that I use though.
Okay.
When I'm doing WE, it's a much more complicated. Like when I'm doing CRB, it's a much more complicated form. There's about like 25 parameters that I go through and everything. So.
Yep. Okay. Now, for all of you who are, looking and listening to this and watching this, it's so interesting to appreciate that this is a very individualistic approach. People come up with their own way of doing this and take responsibility for it. The people who are doing well for this, when you talk to them, without an exception, they rarely give excuses. They take total responsibility for the remote viewing session, for the analysis judging, which we're talking about now. They would take responsibility for the kind of beacon that they use, for their belief systems, for modifying their belief systems. They take responsibility for the whole process, for doing their feedback sessions, how they know and believe they should be doing them. They take responsibility for knowing when they didn't do things as much as they would wish, whether or not they were disciplined. We're all human beings. We all don't keep our discipline as well as we sort of at one level believe we should. And noticing that is part of the whole process and part of getting better and better at this. And if you intend and pay attention and expect to get better and better in this, you'll automatically start making choices which will be consistent with that. If you can kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month.
Yep.
And I really just believe that. And taking responsibility. Okay, John, why don't you now tell us, John, there are a lot of Johns out here, but John Knowles asked about this, the NAG, and how you do your judging, and maybe connect it with how you do your whole session. So this would be a great preview of your approach.
Well, like you said, we're going to go into it in much more detail. November. There is so much that I've learned regarding the WE protocol, and also from the earlier MISTI program, that there's just too much to go through in a meeting like this. But I will tell you this, Joe McMoneagle says independent judging is better. He says that because he's been in a research facility, most of the time that he's been a remote viewer. And of course, they always push the protocols that are part of the scientific method. So of course, he's going to say independent judging is better. But I have found that you learn so much from doing your own judging and analysis, that it becomes part of a feedback loop. And when I first started doing this back when I was doing the MISTI program with Marty, I never thought I could get beyond 66% because I couldn't at that time. And I was just not a mature enough remote viewer. And frankly, when Marty approached me to come back and get involved in WE, I was skeptical because I didn't think that it was possible to get beyond 60%. And Marty proved me wrong. I have completely changed my outlook. I think it is possible to get 90% or better on a long-term basis. And both he and I are working towards getting that. And I think I've got a pretty good shot at it so far. Right now, I think I have 24 hits. I think it's 7 misses and 5 or 6 passes.
This is you right here.
Yeah. And part of what Marty calls the nag is the reason for that. And the only way you can get that nag to work is if you are a self-judger. There's a way, and I'm going to talk about that at length in November. I can't really go into it now because it really would take too much time. But basically what happens is when I do my judging, when I first look at my transcripts versus the photo sites, I'll try to match up from a dispassionate view, transcript with the photo site. But if you take just the dispassionate view and just look at what you've written versus what the photo is, you're missing part of the equation. Part of the equation has to do with your feelings about how the session ran. Many times when I write down something, for instance, an AOL, you have to remember that an AOL is simply your unconscious mind trying to fit a known quantity to an unknown quantity. And in many cases, I found that this AOL really isn't what you think it is, but that the concept of that AOL is what you're really looking for. So after I've made my judging on a dispassionate level, I go back to and before I enter it, I go back and look at the transcripts and just kind of relax and get into the same kind of mental state where I do my remote viewing and try and feel, is my my judging correct? It's kind of like asking your unconscious mind, does this look good? Am I on target? And if I am, normally I don't feel anything. It just feels, like everything's normal. But if I've made an incorrect decision, I feel this gut feeling that something's wrong. It's kind of like my unconscious mind is saying, go back to the transcripts, go back to the transcripts. And I'll go back to the transcript and start re-looking over everything versus the photos. And in many cases, in fact, almost all the cases, in fact, now that I think about it, it is all the cases where I've gone back under this type of situation, I've reversed my choice, and it's turned out to be correct. So this idea of self-judging, you can't do that, I don't believe, as well with an independent judge. And that has, I mean, there's so much that is hooked into this. The idea that passing, okay, if you are going to be a successful precog, I mean, and be anything more than having to do it as a hobby, you've got to learn to use the passes not only judiciously, but to learn from every single one of them. It's so important. You know, if you've got 15 hits and 15 passes, you're missing something. Okay? You're really missing something. Each one of these passes, when you find out what the real choice is, the real choice is, you need to go back to your sessions and see why you passed. There's so much information that's involved there. It's really, really important. That's one of the reasons why I only have a half a dozen passes with 30 examples, is because I only use it judiciously, and because I've learned so much from the passing that I have done, and listened also and integrated my way of doing my viewing with what Marty has said. Everything that Marty's put up here is just like solid gold stuff.
Okay, John, thank you for that. That was beautiful. Thank you. I love the fact that you trust your subconscious so much to go back during that process and ask it, hey, is this okay? Or basically, should I go back and look some more? I mean, that's beautiful. And the other thing, which I think most people don't recognize as well as you do, is that this takes a certain amount of time and effort. The judging has always been the place where more time is spent. And I think this is true of you than your remote viewing sessions or feedback sessions.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, my remote viewing session actually is about, I average between 15 and 20 minutes. That's it. I mean, my judging and doing everything that I do to do the judging takes twice as long.
Right. And the feedback sessions typically are about 15, 20 minutes as well, where you do that entangling, you get into your beacon, whatever it is you do. Okay, John, thank you very much for that.
Can we ask questions?
Yes, that's...
Okay, John, I got a question, not to put you on the spot, and you might have already mentioned this. I had to take some phone calls, but on average, if you can say on a TARG scale, 1 through 7, how are you hitting? And if you occasionally hit low, you're still finding good stuff in low ratings? You understand what I'm saying?
I think so. I really, when I look at my sessions, my transcripts versus the photos, I really choose a number higher than maybe a 4 or 4.5, and even that for me is rare. I usually choose right around a 3.5 for something that I'm comfortable with, and a 1 or a 2 for something that I think doesn't fit that well. So the problem that I've found in terms of, and this is what's going to make the difference between a remote viewer and a precog, is that we're viewing a photo site, not just a photo. We're viewing a photo site because every one of these pictures that is taken from a site, an actual place. And we as remote viewers are taught, to try and pull out every information that you can on a target site. But in that case, we're usually tasked by a human to do that, and there's a certain amount of intention and so on with tasking someone with doing a particular target, and that is missing when a computer does it. There is no emotional content with the computer making, this choice, so to speak, of the pictures. I mean, you have to provide that. So when I usually do my viewing, surprisingly, my transcripts are not always really accurate in terms of my drawings or that sort of thing, my AOLs. But I've learned that how to interpret the things that come through versus the photo choices. So like I said, I rarely choose any higher than a 4.5 on a particular target, and that's if it's so obvious that that's the target. Most of the times it's like I'll choose a 3.5 versus a 1 or a 2, but it works out.
So you're not really putting any type of rating on it, but are you hitting? So you're hitting between a 3.5 and a 5? Is that?
Dave, let me see if what he's saying, and you have to remember, I have looked at many of his transcripts as well, is he doesn't get literal, a whole lot of literal stuff where it's really easy to give it a 5.
Okay.
And even when he gives it a 4.5, he's gotten some stuff which is really good, but it's still not at the level of a 5. He gets his 3.5s and 4s because of this self-judging approach where he basically has figured out, this really is telling me about this.
Okay.
Yeah, Marty's got it right on.
Yeah, so you're getting a lot of gestalt. You're getting a gut feeling, like, clearly this is what I saw. This all makes sense. This adds up.
That's
Yeah. And I think in terms also of gestalts, because I use CRV exclusively to do the precog work. And often I've found that after doing so many of these, not only with the Wii, but the MISTI protocol, that my ideograms really do help. In many cases, they are the deciding factor in which photo choice goes with which transcript. So oftentimes, what I'm looking for in my judging is what's the overall gestalt in each photo, and how does it relate to what I've written in the transcript.
Okay, I like it. I get it. Makes sense.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Other questions, comments?
John, I got a question. How many, like, as far as CRV technique, are you following like what Marty does, Joe, or do you follow like what Lynn Buchanan does? I mean, what's your, how many ideograms are you using? Like, are you going to like, stage 4? What do you, can you give some specifics on it?
Oh yeah. Well, you have to remember that I was taught by Dave Morehouse as my primary instructor, with other instruction coming from both Lynn Buchanan and Paul Smith, Ingo Swan, and Skip Atwater. So, but the basic form of the CRV that I use is just the military form. I mean, that's what I was taught. Okay.
So you're using the 7-step one. There's a couple different forms out there. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, Dave Morehouse taught me CRV, and he was taught the military form. Okay, the 6 stages that was in use at the time during Sunstreak, and he didn't teach the 7th stage simply because I don't think he ever found it that useful. So I use 6 stages, and when I'm doing ARV, I use only through stage 3. I mean, it's hard to get any farther than that when your session only lasts about 15, 20 minutes. So I'm strictly through stage 3. I don't go any farther than that.
So does Morehouse teach? I can't remember. Does he teach? He just teaches like 1 or 2 ideograms per session, doesn't he?
Basically single video. I
He
only use a
uses
single
one.
ideogram unless I have a
Okay,
miss.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
only use a single ideogram unless I have a miss, and I use a missed break, and then I go back and take the coordinate again, and that's it.
So he teaches you. He does you do the ideogram, then poke around that one ideogram for a little bit.
I don't even do that. Dave Morehouse taught, don't get too wrapped around the axle regarding ideograms. He was a firm believer in what Ingo said, and Ingo repeated this to me as well, is when you first do that ideogram, number one, you have to feel whether or not it's a true ideogram. And it's just the feel that the way that it happens. You know, sometimes I'll do an ideogram and I'll take a pass on it, simply because it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like an ideogram. It felt more forced than anything else. And I'll take a missed break and go back and do it again. But Dave said, how does it feel the first time you do it? Well, if you've got one through and it feels right, you know, it feels totally unconscious, whatever movement you made, and how it feels on the paper, and what is your feeling when you do it, that's what you have to put down. That's the true idea behind the ideogram. And it just so happens, like I said earlier, that after doing so many of these types of ARV targets during the MISTI and also the WE, that my ideograms are not, a lot of times will take on aspects of the photo, and you can actually match it right to the photo. So the old saw that it's not how an ideogram looks, it's how an ideogram feels that's important, is true up to a point. But I think that once you are a mature remote viewer, and once you have a number of these things under your belt, your unconscious mind starts to realize that, you know, one channel of communication with you is that ideogram. And it will start to change your ideograms closer and closer to what the actual physical aspects of the target is.
That's almost exactly, it's very different from the way that I was taught. Now, Lynn Buchanan doesn't teach ideograms this way. He teaches it more like a crypto alphabet type of thing, between you and your subconscious. It's less of a visual representation as so much as a verbal representation, and you develop an alphabet with it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at each one of these guys from Stargate, Joe never even used CRV. So, but in terms of like Paul versus Lynn versus Dave, I mean, all three of them teach differently. And even though they're teaching the same things, they all emphasize different ideas and different thoughts on this, which is how, you know, CRV itself is so individualistic. So it doesn't, I don't really know if it really makes any difference which one that you were taught by. The important thing is to establish this connection with your unconscious mind.
And let me add,
I like that idea. I think that's really good, and I'm just sitting here taking notes on that. I was just saying that for a kind of a contrast as to, you know, a contrasting idea to this is. But that was very interesting. Thank you for your comment.
Sure.
And notice what this leads to, because it is individual. You know, we even have the teachers now going different ways. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, you need to get to the point where you take responsibility for the way you use and feel good about it. It's getting to that point. At some point, you kind of stop, I think, modifying it at a very fundamental level. You might make small changes, but you come and say, this is the one that's right for me. It feels good. This is the way I'm going to do it. Knowing that for somebody else, it might be very different. It isn't like there's one best way, just because
That's
your
right.
subconscious is so powerful. And you
Yeah.
need to find a way that works for you that feels good.
One of the things that I teach the people in my ERV classes is that, you know, I tell them straight out, each one of you is going to experience a deep ERV session differently. And I think that Marty has hit it right on the head. In order to do ARV successfully, you have to choose yourself, you know, how you are going to wear your session. So once it feels comfortable on, once you're comfortable in the situation and how you handle your session summaries, how you handle the actual session itself, how you do your judging and analysis, it's all the idea that Marty has about the responsibility. The idea where, you know, you say, oh, well, I had everything perfectly here, and yet I still had a miss. That's putting it on the session. That's not taking responsibility for your analysis and judging. Okay? So you take responsibility for it. If you got a miss, okay, you had a miss. Go back to the session and find out why you missed. Go back to the session and find out what was your unconscious mind trying to tell you with the information that you put down in your session. I mean, the answer is there, but you got to go back and you got to find it. You got to take responsibility.
How do you task yourself, John, when you start your sessions? What do you say to yourself out loud, inside your head? What do you do?
Actually, I use exactly what Marty said. A thing on his emails a while ago regarding regarding the idea of setting up this idea that there is one photo that it is assigned to, one feedback photo that is assigned to a set of coordinates. And that's the thing that you need to review every single time before you go into your session. And one of the things that I do is before I even go into my session, I do my cool down. While I'm cooling down, I will go back through and I will tell myself, okay, there is one picture, one photo site, and one only that is assigned to this set of coordinates. That is what I want. I want the feedback target, what I am going to see when I get my feedback. That's the important thing. I don't care what the target is. The only thing that's important to me is that feedback. There is only one feedback picture that I'm going to see. That's what I want to see. And I do that every time I cool down. And I find that if I don't do that, then I have what you guys call displacement, and what I call bleed through.
How do you do your cool down? You meditate, or what do you do? Listen to music?
I use a couple of theta meditation tapes that you can get online. That's all I use. I mean, I just happen to like the music, and they are designed to get you down to a theta state. The other thing that I do has been that I think that has really helped. It's my belief that the more theta that's in your brainwave patterns when you're doing a session, the better, the more accurate information you're going to get. So if you were at the last ARV meeting in Las Vegas, you saw that I brought along a brain sensing headband called the Muse. And I've been using that to kind of bump up the amount of theta in my sessions, and I think that's also assisted me.
Does that headband thing put you in a better mood? Does it put you in a better mood as well as raise your theta?
Oh yeah, I always feel better whenever I do a uh, a cool down. I mean, it's just, I enjoy the cool down. I like, lying back and just blanking my mind of everything else that's happening and just going through the thing that I do before I do an ARV session. So, independently, I've been using the Muse what I've done is I've set the display to just show theta as a power spectrum. And what I do is I just do meditation while trying to increase the power spectrum of theta waves involved in my brainwave pattern.
Huh. Can you describe, because I mean, most of us don't have an EEG machine handy, can you describe what you're experiencing in the theta state, kind of like how your body feels, how your mind feels, how your thoughts are, everything, so I can kind of get an idea as to, I mean, because it's like you're always mixed, your EEGs are always mixed, it's,
right,
unless you're asleep or,
Right.
But, I mean, I have no way to measure that accurately without,
Sure. And
50,000
to tell you the truth, your brainwave pattern will change once you get out of your cool down and go start doing your CRV, simply because CRV is done in a higher state. You're going to have more beta and more alpha, simply because you're doing a two-stage process, detect and then decode. When you're detecting, you're going to show more theta. When you're decoding, you're going to show more beta. Okay, so that's just the way it is. But the idea is that you want to power up more of the theta during the detect portions. How I know that I'm in a theta state, it has to do with the way that your body feels mostly. When I know that I'm really cooled down in the right place, my body becomes almost numb. So I don't even feel it hardly at all. And that's basically how I know that I'm in the right place.
Are you saying hypogagic, how the heck do you pronounce that word? Hypogagic imagery?
No, actually, when I'm in the matrix like that, it's either darkness or it looks like purple fog floating around inside my eyes. That's about all. It's pretty much what I see when I'm doing an actual CRV session behind my closed eyelids. So the only difference is that because I'm not focusing on a target, it's just random shapes and movement behind my eyelids, or darkness.
How long does a typical cool down for you take? How much time do you take for that?
It depends. It depends on my mood. Some days I'll do maybe 20 minutes, and I feel like I'm in the right place, and I'll just and I'm excited about doing the session, and I'll just jump up and go and do it right from there. Other times, because of just the way that things are going in my life, it takes a little bit longer, and I'll spend more time in it and do it maybe 30 minutes or so. Sometimes even longer. Sometimes I'm just so comfortable and everything. I'll run through not only a single audio that's usually about 30 minutes or 20 minutes long, and do a second one that's then also 20 minutes long, to a total of 40 minutes before I get up and go do it. And that's simply a personal choice, because either there's a lot of stuff going on at my time, at the time in my life, or it's just simply that I'm comfortable in the cool down state, and I'm enjoying it, and I figure well, what the heck, I'll just take a little bit longer.
That's great, John. It's all attitude, and that's what you put together so beautifully.
Yeah, it's just it's just whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay, I have a question. I know it might be kind of obscure, but do you? So it sounds like you do your cool down and your session in two different locations. You talked about getting up and going, and then so that's one question. And then I'd like to know where actually you do you do it at a desk, or
basically what it is I'll lie down on the couch, pull up iTunes, and pull up the Theta meditation tape, and just kick back and relax and just get really loosey-goosey and just enjoy the music. And when I feel that I'm in the right mindset, then I'll take the headphones off and I get up and I do my actual session, remote viewing session at the table. And I have everything already set up and ready to go. I have the coordinates there. I have my watch so that I have the time and date. And I have a stack of paper and I have several pens. One of the things that I do that's probably a little different than most people is that I do all of my writing in a pen, but I do the ideogram in a Bic marker. And the reason is that I like the feel of the marker, and I like the nice dark line that comes out of that. But I can't use it to do probing on the paper because, of course, it leaks. You want it with a big black blob in the center of the paper. So I do my ideogram using a Bic marker, one of those thin black markers that you get with the felt tip. And I do the rest of the writing with a pen. And I do it, like I said, at the table. And I have everything there.
This is so great. Bring all of that to access with you.
Are you worried about, okay, I know it's another obscure question, but if you've been doing it really long time, you start dialing down in little, obscurities. So are you worried about your body posture when you're sitting in the chair? Like, do you have to have both feet on the ground? Are you wearing shoes? Are you barefooted? Do you have any?
I'm just comfortable usually. Usually when I'm walking around the house, I usually have a T-shirt on, a pair of shorts, because especially during the summer when it's really hot. So I like to be comfortable. If the room is too hot, I usually flip the air conditioning on to bring it down to a comfortable temperature. Let's see. One of the things I do.
You're barefooted, right? You're not wearing shoes.
No, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter.
As long as you're comfortable. As long as you're comfortable. Whatever you want to wear or don't wear is completely up to you. Whatever you're most comfortable with. That's what I would say. Okay. And one of the things that I do to kind of give the impression to my unconscious mind that I want single feedback session or single feedback photo sites to be assigned to a single set of coordinates is when I get the coordinates from online, when Marty sends out the coordinates, I'll go to the coordinate site and it has the two sets of coordinates. I write them both on a pad, on one of those small pads of paper that are like about a 3x5 that you peel off, okay? And I'll write the two coordinates there using the Bic felt tip pen. But when it's my time to do the session, I'll take a pair of scissors and I'll cut the one set of coordinates that I'm going to do for that session off that pad of paper. And I'll bring that and put that in front of me on the table so that I'm only dealing with that one set of coordinates. I want it separate. I don't want to get any bleed through. And that's one of the reasons why I think I have less bleed through now than I did when I first started, is the fact that I've taught my unconscious mind that I don't want anything to do. These are with the other target. I mean, these are separate target sessions. The only thing that is important with this set of coordinates is going to be a single photo set that I'm going to get in a couple of days. That is what I wanted to understand.
Such an important beacon for you. I mean, that's just, again, beautiful. And let me just say, Dave, in my opinion, the specifics that he is doing is a great way to do it, but less important than he's doing something to focus this intention, attention, and expectation on the one correct feedback target. Notice he's just, everything he's doing is focused in that way.
Yeah, that's
And
spot on,
the
Marty.
word beacon. I use the word beacon, but you know, he doesn't use that word, and that's fine. But that's what he's doing. He's focusing all of that, and that's what it's leading to.
Yeah, everything has to be towards the idea that there is one and only one correct photo choice. Only one. And if I get a hit, you know, I'm unabashed when I get the information from Marty saying that I got a hit. You know, I jump up and down, I get happy, you know, I say, right on, spot on, and I'll go back and I'll go through my session summary versus, you know, the feedback picture, and I'll pick out everything. And then what I do is I'll draw the things that stuck out in my mind when I did the actual target session, and I will take that and I will draw it on the back of my session summaries after I get the feedback, so that I'm setting up a retrocausal loop with that photo site, so that the things that stick out when I get the actual correct target photo are going to be the things that hopefully that will stick out to me when I actually do my target session, and then I pull up the pictures to do the choices.
Okay.
And then, after I've done all of that, then I go and I reward, you know, using operant conditioning techniques, I reward my unconscious mind by having a slice of key lime pie.
He loves his key lime pie. Okay, we're at 2 hours. There was one. Let's have one more question, and then
Can I jump in real fast?
please go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, because I've been sitting here thinking about what's been bothering me, and now I think I finally figured it out. Hi, John. How are you? It's Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
I think you helped me clarify what I was trying to figure out earlier. So when you say to yourself, there's only one correct feedback choice, what's the difference between saying that to yourself and trying to sort of play leapfrog and jump to the ultimate correct judgment? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't
In other words,
understand.
so you're trying to figure out, well, how would you most accurately describe each photo site, right?
Nancy, have you done a feedback session? Have you gotten far enough into this where you've actually been to a feedback session? You're right with the judging session. I think you have made a prediction, but have you gone all the way through to the feedback session? Because your questions, at least as I'm interpreting them, are not from the perspective of someone who's actually done a feedback session. But am I wrong, or have you gone all the way to the feedback session?
I don't know. Now I'm very confused.
Yeah, I think
I understand everything that you, I mean, nothing about what you say confuses me whatsoever. In fact, I'm extremely comfortable with everything else that you're saying, but this one particular issue is just bugging me.
And that's because I think you've only stopped at the judging session where you see both of them, but you don't yet know the correct target. In there is actually a feedback session. I'm going to do another one of these online where we go through it all with roulette. We've done this before, and you go all the way through the feedback session. Please attend that. You'll see it. Maybe I'll even try to get it done, do it for next week.
Oh, okay, because I mean, eventually, I see ultimately what the correct answer is once you send it out.
Okay, so and then do you go back in and click that link to? Well, you do see it. Okay.
Oh yeah, I always see the correct answer ultimately. So I don't understand. I mean, am I trying to figure out just to accurately describe each photograph?
No, just one photograph.
at remote viewing time,
You screwed up.
at,
Just one photograph.
right, with one coordinate, one photograph, period.
Yeah, but why not leapfrog over that and just get the right answer?
Oh, you mean up or down?
Yeah.
Because that's called forced choice. That's called forced choice, and it's shown not to work as well. The subconscious gets bored. Up or down, it would much prefer to do something like photos.
Right, but no, I'm not saying that. Why not just pick the photo that's ultimately just going to be the right one?
That is what you do. That's what you do at remote viewing time.
I
Oh,
think
you
I'm
mean
going to
at
have to
judging. See, at judging, that's what you try to do, but you have to use judgment. You are missing something. Okay, go ahead, John. Try to.
I was just going to say, Nancy, I'm trying to figure out to jump to the. I don't quite understand that idea. When I do my sessions, everything is focused on the idea that what I am viewing is the feedback photo. The whole idea that I try and set up, everything that I do is set up with the idea that there is only one correct choice.
And you're jumping to it.
Correct photo.
And you're jumping to it. Your intention is using her time to jump to it at remote viewing time, Nancy.
Yes.
That's at the remote viewing session.
Right.
So
and
the whole idea that when I'm doing my cool down is this idea that I'm going to jump to that photo only. That is the only important thing.
Right, but you have to describe both photos.
No.
No. You do not want to describe both photos. No.
That's what you're not getting.
Remember,
one coordinate,
one coordinate, one photo, just like he said. You have to separate these two coordinates that you get in WE. They are separate. Do not make the mistake that you need to entangle those, because then you're going to be completely messed up. The idea is to separate these two as much as you possibly can. That's why when I write the coordinates down, I write them on a pad of paper. Like I said, they're stickums that are on a 3x5 thing. And I write down the two coordinates on that paper. But before I do my cool down, when I go onto my kitchen table and I have my workstation set up where I have my stack of paper, I have my pens, I have my watch, I will cut off the one set of coordinates that I will use from that pad, and I put the pad of paper with the other coordinate on it someplace else in the house. And I take that single slip with the coordinate that I'm going to work, and I put it on the table in front of me. And that's how I tell my unconscious mind, when I go to do my cool down right after that, is this is what I'm working. I am working this coordinate, and there is only one feedback photo for that coordinate. That's what I want. And that's how I set up this idea that this is a single, separate, isolated session. And the only entanglement that I want is the entanglement with that feedback photo that I'm going to be shown in the future.
I have thank you, John. You just beautiful. I have one other suggestion for you, Nancy, that might actually help clarify this to you and your subconscious. Do you know when you get to that page right before, well, it's a page which gives you an option to do one coordinate or two coordinates.
Right.
Why don't you?
I think it's normally two coordinates, I think.
Exactly. That's the default. Why don't you, for your next few predictions, choose the one coordinate one? Because I think it will help clarify this for you. So just choose one coordinate, and then you don't have any choice but to try to get that to be the feedback target, period.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Why don't you try that? I think that'll help you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other topic that anybody would like to raise now? I do always like to open it up for that. Okay. Okay, well this was really a good one. A preview of what John will give and even more details, and obviously you'll be able to ask more questions at AppFest. So, I mean, I guess that's another topic is in November, so you might consider doing that. And I will thank you all for coming here. If there is nothing else, why don't I end it here? All of you keep precogging, and we'll stay in touch, and this webinar video will be available to us relatively soon.
Marty?
And Shane does that. Thank you, Shane. Yeah, John?
I just wanted to let you know that I've got some stuff that I'm going to be sending you regarding the November.
Okay, that's terrific. I'll look forward to that, and we'll be talking more. We'll be talking more about that. Okay, everybody, take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Right. Bye.
Good morning. Bye, everybody.
Bye.